Hello, preppers. Of course, at Goshen Prepping, we talk about being prepared for what could be the worst case scenario, what I think is World War III. And before that happens, which I believe it is coming soon, we need to be ready. Time is certainly short. Now, I want to go ahead and talk about shots heard around the world. And I don't mean just the shot heard around the world, because there's actually been, this has happened numerous times. Often when I bring it up, people will reference in 1775, Lexington and Concord, basically the shot starting off the American Revolutionary War, which of course it's true, but also the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand in Sarajevo too, basically starting off World War I. And there's been others too, by the way. But historically speaking, I want you to understand and think about this, and I think a lot of you already know, that those shots didn't simply just start the war. In fact, it's actually argumentative if that's actually the real catalyst that really made it happen. Because, and stick with me on this, because this video we're going to go into what's happening now, especially with China, and how we're actually right on the verge of an invasion of Taiwan. Because in these situations, we didn't simply just have it, people are drinking their margaritas and everything's just fine, then suddenly the shot envelops, killing Archduke, and then suddenly now we're in World War I. Not at all. I mean, the world was in chaos and actually having, if you want to go ahead and put it this way, brush fire battles and tensions rising before that happened in the first place. And yes, in those situations, the shot was the catalyst that basically set it off down the path that we know as history today. And history tells us that in those situations, just like we are today, there's actually a lot of desperation that's taking place also. Because understand that people in general don't usually want to just go to war willy-nilly. But if people are sitting in their houses all cozy with their margaritas or whatever they have to basically give them comfort, it's not going to give them much motivation to say, you know what, I'm going to put down my stuff because I want to go to war today. It doesn't really happen that way. Instead, we see lots and lots of propaganda, lots and lots of information popping up, misinformation, disinformation, all these things happening to get the people out of their chair and say, we need to take action on this. And people keep saying, just like in modern America, we need to take action, we need to take action. And then suddenly a shot is heard, and that is the starting gun shot, the catalyst to cause things to happen. I'm enjoying my margarita. I don't know about you. I don't want to go to war. I don't want any of these things to happen. I want to enjoy my life with my family and my friends and you, and not worry about another world war another world war we will be heading into shortly. All right. So just like with Germany back then, the dividing lines are already being drawn. We're seeing the same thing with Russia and Ukraine. It's more than just Russia and Ukraine, but all the surrounding countries. We're seeing the dividing line being drawn, and countries are taking sides. It's almost like an ultimate game of dodgeball. You know what I'm saying? So basically, they pick the teams, people get over there, and you can yell go all you want to, but the dodgeball match, the whole out war with dodgeballs flying both ways, doesn't happen until somebody takes that first shot. But the teams are already being divided up prior to that happening. And that's what we're seeing right before our eyes right now. It's just a matter before the first dodgeball is cast. I know, a weird analogy. But one of the catalysts we actually see in that situation is also a buildup of arms, an arms race. We saw the same things in World War I and World War II, massive arm race. Don't you know, or did you know, like in World War II, that the Germans were actually set under an agreement forced upon them, of course it was, that they can't build up a military. Well, Germany, especially under Nazi Germany, wanted to build up a military without actually raising eyebrows or causing concerns. I mean, eventually it happened and everybody sat back and said, uh-oh, they're doing it, but I don't want another war. Let's not jump into this. But they were actually training their Navy captains using rowboats in a lake because they couldn't get their hands on actual ships just yet, but they actually had to know the different maneuvers. Not only that, Germany was not allowed to actually make, like, for example, U-boats, submarines, but they wanted the technology to do it. So they actually made U-boats. They were allowed to build them for other countries, and then they sold them to those other countries. And it actually gave their engineers not only the technology and understanding of how to do it professionally, but they already had the plants to be able to make them on their own. So when the Nazis took over, they're like, okay, let's start mass producing our own U-boats, which, of course, history. The U-boats were devastating, especially in the Atlantic Ocean, going through and destroying the shipping lanes. All right, now with that, let's take a look at China. China is in the same situation. You can almost look at it as being pre-Nazi Germany. They are making incredible advancements in technology. Granted, right now their Navy, I'm going to go ahead and say is a joke. I never want to say or underestimate an enemy by any means, but their Navy, compared to the U.S. Navy, is nothing. Okay, it is like really small. And I've had people argue with this, and that's fine. You can be wrong. Go ahead and look up the information, you'll realize that right now their Navy, they have 3 carriers. And the third carrier is the first carrier they actually built, and they're trying to make it so it matches up with our 11 carriers. I think it's 11 anyway that we have in the United States, and all 11 of ours are simply just top-notch incredible. Their one carrier tries to mimic it, but fails miserably. But I'm not downplaying that. It's their step. It's their Germans making the U-boats before the war starts. They are getting their things right. They are building militarily significantly with huge advancements in their Navy, huge ones. They are growing so fast, it's just a matter of time before they are a match for us. Right now they're not, but they're heading that way. And how can they do that? Obviously we don't have a treaty with China saying they can't build up their military, but they just simply haven't caught up technologically speaking with us. But they are heading in that direction. And how can they do it? 2 ways. And here's what I want you to listen to very carefully. There's 2 ways they're doing this. Number one, financially. Somebody's backing the Chinese financially, substantially, and that is the United States. That's us. I mean, it is not just us by any means, but all across the world, people are buying Chinese crap, and I'll use that term very clearly, crap, all over the place, and it is sending ridiculous amounts of money to China. I'm all for buying American. I want to make it so we go back to the golden days and everything was buying American, you buy USA made, or at least some of our close allies. I like buying things from our close allies, like, for example, Japan and South Korea. I think it's smart in numerous ways. But here's the thing. You buy some piece of crap from China, it costs you $5, and then you buy the same thing made in USA, and it may not be a piece of crap, but it'll actually cost $25. I'm just making those numbers up. It makes it really difficult when you only have so much money coming in the United States to buy stuff. You know what I'm saying? I think a lot of you are in that same situation. I wish we can go back to the United States, maybe paying things for $10, but the gap has actually widened so much so that it's very difficult to buy only USA made stuff. Not saying impossible, but it is difficult. So the second thing that's actually causing China to explode is their espionage. It is blatantly clear that they are stealing trade secrets all around the world, including from Russia too, which actually makes me chuckle a little bit. And it ticks Russia off, but Russia still has these agreements with them. And they're doing their best to try to get everything from us technologically speaking, because you know what? That's half the battle. That's more than half. All they have to do is take those trade secrets that we actually worked for years and put so much money into, then they take the next step and build it themselves. So financing coming from America and other countries too, and espionage are the 2 things that basically China is growing so rapidly. And of course, with this, they continuously threaten Taiwan and they want to invade. This is not an idle threat. They absolutely view it, 100% emphatically speaking, that Taiwan is part of China. Now, Taiwan is an island about 100 miles off the coast of China. And why haven't they attacked? Why haven't they? I mean, because you understand, our think tanks in the United States, we actually had numerous war colleges think about this and said that if China, if and when they decide to invade Taiwan, will take it with ease. Even with the United States. I mean, sometimes Biden's saying, well, we got your back, Taiwan, and other times they're like, we won't get your back. So even with the waffling that comes from the United States, China could easily take it. I mean, and the think tanks say that, simply put, for us, it's too far away and we have too little military power to actually make any difference in stopping that from happening. So why haven't they done it? Why hasn't China, if they so desperately want to take over Taiwan, why haven't they done it? For 2 reasons. And I just told them to you, finances and espionage. Because I want you to think about this, because I'm not speaking just metaphorically, I'm speaking historically. If we the United States and other countries too, are pouring so much money into China to buy their crap, they know that once they invade Taiwan, that lifeline has been cut. And understand that they want to have their military power built up before they finally cut that string. And secondly, espionage. Because understand right now, I mean, there's so many Americans who are duped by this, and please don't. But it's not even just TikTok, even though people are always saying, oh, I shouldn't use TikTok because China's spying through it. Yeah, they are. They've admitted that. We understand that once that invasion happens and we're actually in possibly a de facto state of war at the very least with China, the finances is going to be seriously cut off going to China. We're seeing the same thing happening with Russia right now. And guess what? The espionage will be mostly cut off too, because the relations we have with China is going to be cut and diminished severely for the fact that they're not going to be able to get information from us very easily anymore. Loose lips sink ships. And when that happens, granted, there's always going to be cyber attacks and cybersecurity to worry about, but actually having Chinese people here in the United States going to college and stuff is going to stop. Because I don't know if you know it, but China is all over the United States right now, going to our colleges and going to our engineering schools and learning our trade secrets. But once that shot is fired, all of that's going to stop. All right. Now, I know it'll become much more difficult to get their Navy up to speed per se. It's going to take a while. So the financial espionage actually has to hold off, and right now it's what's holding off their war with Taiwan. Well, let's go and take a look at our first article. Actually, it's our only article. From the Washington Times, Gallagher, U.S. failing to address China's threat. And it's really funny. Somebody said to me, it's like, you always look at the Republican papers and you always knock on liberals. Yeah, because the liberals right now are clouding and fudging everything up. This guy's not a liberal. He is a conservative. He is a Republican. And he says the U.S. is waking up too slowly talking about China, the problems with China. And he is actually pushing through saying we need to actually be much more aggressive with China. And he talks about the past 2 decades under the administration, both parties have failed to act, and that's true. I think we're waking up, but we're waking up too slowly, he said, which gives me hope for our both parties are starting to say some of the right things on China. In other words, financially stop them from what they're doing. Let's go and go through it. And that's, you can read through this article if you want to. But basically it says, where the divide is more pronounced has less to do with Democrats and Republicans, more to do with, let's say, here it is, industry and Wall Street versus those that come us from a national security perspective. We have a lot of major asset managers that continue to plow American money into China, which is true. I mean, it talks about some of the different corporations. It talks about how Biden has been waffling on here, which I agree with. But it comes down to this. He's saying we need to be more strict in not allowing so much money to go to China. Now, he's not talking about the espionage part so much, even though it's in the article too. But he's saying we need to actually cut off our supply of economy to China. I'm not disagreeing by any means. I wish we can go back to the days where the United States we provided for ourselves, even being isolationist. I really do. But understand what is holding off China from invading Taiwan? What is holding off World War III from developing? And it's not just China, but Japan and North Korea and South Korea. Many other countries in that area are going to be forced into this as well, including the United States. It is inevitable. What's stopping it? The amount of money going into China and the espionage. And so what this representative is pushing is saying we need to start cutting them off. We need to cut off your flow of money. Not disagreeing with this, but here's the problem, and this is what we need to look at. We need to realize that we are responsible for our actions. Okay, this could be the catalyst that'll lead to war with China by cutting them off financially. And it's one of those things, listen, we may be damned if we do, damned if we don't. Okay, but just like Ukraine, we are sending billions of dollars of weapons to Ukraine, billions of dollars of weapons. And when Russia gets ticked off about this, we're like, that's not us attacking you, Russia. You can't send them the weapons and have the deniability. We are already neck deep in that situation. You understand? We're already there. We actually have soldiers there now too. Granted, they may be far from the front line, but notice how everything keeps advancing, going closer and going closer to America being 100% involved in that war. I think it's just a matter of time. So in this situation, when we're talking about with China, we can't simply just say, you know what, let's cut off finances to China and then say, well, we're no part of this. We're just going to cut off finances to them. We're neck deep in it. We already have been neck deep in that whole situation. Okay. And you have to understand too, that when that time comes and we cut off the finances, China's going to be like, okay, no motivation now, or I'm not getting my money from America anymore. So fine, we'll go ahead and invade Taiwan. That's going to make them significantly more financially independent, China that is, because some of the things we actually get from Taiwan, even like talking about like semiconductor chips, China will now have that. And guess who's not getting those semiconductors? Because making that invasion is going to make them stronger. It'll actually make us weaker. Okay, so it will happen. And America will always pretend, well, I didn't have any blood on my hands. I didn't do that. But history proves otherwise. China in that situation may be the aggressor, but the U.S. is the provocator. Russia may be the aggressor, but U.S., our hands are bloody. We are a provocator in that situation. Granted, I'm not saying we shouldn't have, because Ukraine would have been decimated without using our weapons over there. It's another damned if we do, damned if we don't situation. Understand the exact same thing happened in Japan in World War II. Japan was the aggressor, invading all kinds of countries all throughout the East, all throughout Asia. And we said, you know what? No more of that. So we cut off the oil supply. Japan was the aggressor, but we were the provocator, leading to the attack on Pearl Harbor, leading to the involvement and the joining of the World War II with the United States. Again, not saying it wasn't justified, but our hands are bloody. Our hands continue to be bloody. And so what it comes down to for you and me, and the whole point of this whole video and the whole point of Goshen prepping is this: we need to be ready, because no matter who the provocator is, no matter who the aggressor is, it doesn't matter. We are the ones who are going to have to pay for this. And we're heading for seriously, seriously troubled times. We need to be ready and prepared. Goshen prepping.